Welcome. My name is Bob Atlas. I'm one of the co-owners and co-founders of Fire Alumni, and we're here today with Chief Bobby Halton, Editor-in-Chief of Fire Engineering and Education Director of the Fire Department Instructors Conference, FDIC. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's exciting. You know, we've had the opportunity, you and I, Judon, Brian, have had the opportunity to work together over the years on a couple of projects, and I know we've come to know you as a man of great character and great moral integrity. We believe you're a tremendous fire service visionary who's leading us into the new era, and yet you've got your feet firmly planted on the ground, and you're able to be in the trenches, as evidenced by all the places that you go and we see when you're on Facebook, and we appreciate that you're still in there with the fire companies, and I think that's a phenomenal testament to your desire to pay back to the fire service. Let me just say how fortunate the fire service is too to have a leader like you, and how grateful we are at Fire Alumni to be able to take an opportunity to work with you, not just today, but as we go forward into the future.
So, well, those are very kind words, and I'm very appreciative. But the reality of it is, I'm a average firefighter. I'm a less than average writer, which is unfortunate because I get paid to write these days. And I've always just had nothing but the utmost love and respect and passion for the fire service, every aspect of it too, and been very blessed to have great people in my life, and great opportunities, and wonderful people who've just treated me exceptionally well, and I'll always be in their debt, and dozens of, the list is too long to even begin to start listing, but I'm nothing special. I'm just a regular firefighter, and with just a tremendous opportunity because of this job.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. For a minute, just take some time and tell us a little bit about who Chief Bobby Halton is, and tell us about your background, family, education.
Well, I'm a fifth-generation firefighter, New York City. My family's been in that organization now for 6 generations, and very great organization. Grew up around a lot of firemen and police officers and priests. I'm an Irish Catholic kid from the Bronx, and always knew that I wanted to do public service, and was always drawn to the fire service. My namesake, my Uncle Robert, was a New York City police officer. He was a detective first class and a volunteer firefighter, and very active volunteer firefighter. Marvelous guy in the process too. Just a real legendary, bigger than life kind of character. And my godfather, my Uncle Matt, was also a volunteer firefighter, and he owned a hardware store, and both of them had tremendous influence on me from an early age. It was as a kid, I remember just everything about the fire service was just perfect for me. And so I wanted to be a firefighter for a long time, and I was very fortunate to be picked up by the Albuquerque Fire Department while I was in college, just after college, and started there and had a wonderful career with the Albuquerque Fire Department, a tremendous organization, very motivated organization, very carefully led organization, very connected to the community, great officers, wonderful mentors, very engaged group of men and women. And from there I went, retired, rose to the ranks of deputy chief. I was a training chief, I was a battalion chief, all competitive exam, all the way from firefighter all the way through, and served as a firefighter for 5 years, and an engineer for 5 years, and a lieutenant for 5 years, and a captain, a chief, district chief, a commander, assistant chief, and then finally deputy chief of operations, and then went on to the Coppell, Texas Fire Department for about a year and change as their fire chief, and then the folks at Fire Engineering asked me if I'd be interested in being their editor-in-chief, and I accepted, and I've been here for 9 years.
Wow, that's fantastic. It's a tremendous story, and it's a testament to your tenacity and your commitment to the fire service. It's great to know that in a career you can step out and have 25 30-year career doing the job that most kids dream of doing when they're young. But you've been able to parlay that not only in an active service role, but also into, the years past that, and you're still making a great contribution. It's fantastic.
Well, and I'm still very connected with right now I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is, it's part of the Bible Belt, and it's actually the buckle. It's the Bible, and so very proud to be here. It's a very beautiful community, and I participate. I don't, due to health reasons, I don't actively fight fire any longer, but I still speak and help support the Limestone Fire Protection District, which I'm very proud of, here just outside of Tulsa. Great group of people. I work very closely with the Tulsa Fire Department. Wonderful group of firefighters, very well led, marvelous group of folks there. Help out with a good friend of mine runs the Oklahoma burn camp, so I'm very active with him. He's a great guy, Scotty Stokes, and I do a lot with the Fools organization, who I think are very active in the American Fire Service, and do a lot of speaking and participating in Fools conferences around the country. So, been very fortunate and very grateful to all those folks for let me hang out still.
Yeah, well, it's funny. We don't realize it when we're young, but they say that the fire service is not just a career, it's a lifestyle, and I think you truly epitomize that, because you've taken that, to the very far extent. So thank you for that. Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you, Bob, and thank you guys.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Now, you talked earlier about your namesake and some people that had an impact in you, in your career. Who was your mentor coming up in the fire service?
Well, I actually had several. When I was at the Albuquerque Fire Department, there was a officer named Ali Sarajawan, and Ali was a amazing officer. He was really very, very intuitive and very very connected emotionally to his men and women, and he really, you always hear that old adage, people don't care how much you know until they know that you care.
Sure.
Well, he cared, and it showed all the time. And Ali really helped me stay grounded. I'd have to say my Uncle Robert and my Uncle Matt were my first mentors. Then Ali, and then Chief Brunacini and Tommy Brennan came into my life. And both of those
guys, yeah.
Oh, amazing firefighters, amazing men. Alan let me hang out a lot in Phoenix, and Tommy let me hang out with him in New York and Waterbury, and always gave me great advice. And Tommy actually convinced me to take the job here. Initially, I wasn't inclined to do it because I didn't think I had anything to offer. And Tommy gave me advice. I told him, I don't know if I'd be a good editor. I don't know if I'd be a good, director of FDIC. And he said, Bobby, just try it for a year, and if it doesn't work out, you can always tell people you were the former editor of fire engineering, which I thought was kind of funny. He said, there's 30,000 fire chiefs in America, but there's only one editor-in-chief of fire engineering. He said, you'll always have that in your resume. So God bless him. So I guess then it would have been Alan and Tommy. And Chief Brunacini, the lessons that you learn from Chief Brunacini, every conversation is an education. I know a lot of my friends have gotten their master's degrees and their PhDs in the fire service and in leadership and communication, but I would trade all of that for an afternoon with Alan Brunacini and Tom Brennan, and I was blessed as a young officer to have many, 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 many times alone with them for hours upon hours where, just listening to them interact and allowed to be part of that conversation. And I thank God for that opportunity. And I can't tell you how blessed I was to be allowed to know those men in such an intimate and passionate way.
Well, I think you're carrying on a lot of the teachings that they bring forth, and I think that's that's something great, because the fire service will remain for a long time, and I think it's what we give back and what we put back in the seat or in the laps of the incumbent firefighters, and then again what the people that are coming up in the fire service are looking for, and those lessons have to be paid forward to those folks. So yeah, absolutely. Well, what made you become a firefighter? What made you decide on the fire service is my career? I want to do this. forever.
Well, it's the law in the Bronx. If you're,
This is true.
I was an Irish, Hispanic American Irish kid, and Puerto Rican and Irish.
So you didn't have a choice.
Yeah, no. When you're born, my mom was the oldest of 12. I was one of 7. And my grandmother would, when you were born, you would depend on what order you were, cop, fireman, priest, And so it was preordained when I was born that, I'd be in the fire service. And it's a tremendous legacy when you think about it. And I'm very proud of my Irish Catholic heritage and the contributions that we've made to the fire service in general around the world. And so I don't know. I always wanted to serve. I did do a brief stint during college as a ranger for the U.S. Forest Service, and loved it. But there's, and absolutely adore the law enforcement people and people that do it. I've got nothing but the utmost respect. I just I don't have that commanding a presence, and I'm not that strong. I would end up getting beat up a lot if I was a cop. But the fire service, just the idea that we show up, and regardless of the type of problem, regardless of the scope of the problem, we do whatever we can to make it better at all costs, and we never bring a bad day to anybody. We only bring solutions. I love that line out of the Coast Guard creed, which we co-opted for the fire service, but it said, "I will endeavor to the best of my abilities to bring to my superiors solutions, not problems." And I think that's what we bring to society. We bring solutions.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. With the advent of the 911 system and emergency calling, people will call us in their very darkest hour as their last resort with no hope left, and we have to come and we have to fix the problem. And I think that's by nature what we desire to do, and that's why I said earlier it's not just a job, it's a lifestyle, because we do it when we get home too.
Yeah,
we do it at home.
Yeah, and people do it for us, and I think the understanding and having an appreciation of gratitude, of being grateful for what we have is so important. For example, my computer I did a stupid thing over the weekend, and I downloaded something, and the minute I did it, I knew I shouldn't have done it, and of course it messed up my computer. And the good folks here came and they bailed me out. And lovely young lady, right from Central Casting, knew exactly what she was doing. Your flam job, it has and here, let me put this back into your whatchamacallit. And she and just magically made the whole thing better. And we don't understand that when we show up and we put out a fire, or we stop a sprinkler head from activating, or we get the elevator to work, or we do what we do, that to the good folks we're doing it for, it's that same kind of magic. And just appreciate it, being grateful and understanding gratitude, I think, is probably the number one quality that firefighters should always try to engender. If we're going to talk about, as a young firefighter, if we wanted to look for the right kind of candidate, we should look for grateful people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's take a minute and talk about fire engineering.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about fire engineering and what its position is.
Well, it's the world's oldest peer-reviewed trade journal in the fire service. We're 137 years old. We were founded in 1877 on November 17th. The actual mission statement, if I stand up, is that going to mess us up?
Go right ahead. No, absolutely.
Okay.
You probably want to find it.
No, I keep it right here behind me. So, and I like a lot of folks today, I work standing up. I've got one of these stand-up deals.
Oh, yeah.
But we actually this is the actual mission statement of the original. At the time, it was called the National Fireman's Journal. And what was so intriguing to me about it, and I really believe in mission statements. I don't believe in verbose platitudes or bumper sticker mission statements. I think those are a waste of time. But a mission statement like our creed that we worked on a few years ago,
Sure.
or this one, the fire engineering, which started off as a National Firemen's Journal, is devoted to the interests of the firemen of the country. And today I would interpret that to be devoted to the interests of the firefighters of the world.
Yes.
And they said that we presume the journal will be called the Fireman's Organ, if by that it would be meant that we will watch over the interests of the firemen in all sections of the country and endeavor to keep them informed of whatever occurs that is likely to be of interest or advantage to them. Then we shall cheerfully consent to be termed an organ. But if it shall be intended to convey the idea that the journal is a tool of any clique or ring for the promulgation of any particular idea or for the advancement of the special aims of any person or set of persons, then we most indignantly repudiate the term, for the journal will never be an organ in any such objectionable sense. And what that, if you listen to those words carefully, what that means is that you can't buy your way into fire engineering. You can't have an agenda. Everyone's opinion is equal, whether it's Bob Atlas's opinion or Bobby Halton's opinion or one of the recruits that just got out of the recruit academy's second day on the job. Everyone's opinion has the same value, is given the same respect and the same dignity, that we will never allow ourselves to promulgate one set, smooth versus fog, or ventilate versus don't ventilate, or young versus old, or we will never do that. We will be a cheerful organ for all of those voices and allow, in the true libertarian sense of the word, allow everyone to be at peace with what they're at peace with, and not try to force any agenda or any program down anyone's throat, which I think is so important, especially today, because you see so many people today grasping on to what we're doing with the UL and NIST studies, and then trying to say that they're going to force a set of tactics or force people to adopt what their interpretation of these studies are. For example, flow paths. We're getting a greater understanding of the flow paths and their movements. One would do well to remember that James Braidwood of the London Fire Brigade in 1866 was writing about flow paths. So it's not that new of a discovery. We've always known about them. How we tactically integrate that information is the choice of the practitioner. And choices is what's made America great. Freedom's a wonderful thing, and men have proven that they're willing to die for it. And it's not from unconstrained choice. It's rather from choices that have been defined by a set of intuitively understood natural commitments. And natural commitments are nature's law, God's law. And by that, all men are created equal and free to choose. And so if you choose to adopt some of these things, good for you. If you choose not to, good for you. If you're a vertical ventilation person, but you understand the ramifications of that in terms of heat release rates and whatnot, good for you. It doesn't mean you're any better than or any worse than. It doesn't mean you're any smarter than or any dumber than anyone else. But knowledge is power only when it's evaluated and integrated in a meaningful way into practice. So that mission statement I've held dear, and I keep behind me every day with a picture of my mom and my children, and I look at it constantly. And when people ask me, how come you ran an article about transitional attack 1 month, and then you ran an article by a kind of a counter opinion? Fire engineering is not a Bible. Please get that through your heads. We're an organ for the fire service to have a healthy, respectful, and dignified discussion about the things that interest us.
Well, I think you touched on a really important part, and that is why fire engineering is so important, from the standpoint that it's not forcing one man or one group or one party's agenda, but what it's doing is it's giving people all of the options and letting them use the good head that they've been given on their shoulders to determine what's best for them. I mean, that's ultimately what every good firefighter is supposed to do when they grab the nozzle and they roll into the front door. They're supposed to evaluate the situation and determine, is this going to be a straight stream attack? Is this going to be a fog nozzle attack? Where's my ventilation? Is it vertical ventilation? Is it horizontal? Those decisions, we train for those decisions all day long, every day, and then we make those decisions based on what we have in our bag of tricks, per se. And I think fire engineering is so important because it doesn't say your bag of tricks just contains one thing or one way of doing business.
And I think it's so important that we understand that every action must be done with respect towards others around you, and everyone's evaluations of others' actions must be evaluated in that way, that those firefighters' actions, although you may not understand them in the context of how you were trained, to them made sense to them at the time, or they wouldn't have done them that way.
Right, absolutely. I mean, we talk about that very frequently, and that there's always, that adage of there's always more than one way to skin a cat. And you have to expect that there's going to be people that'll have their own personal, agendas, or that they'll have their own favorite way of doing things, and just respect that. I think that's one of the things that we like to think that the new firefighter is going to develop, is a healthy respect, not for just people, but for all of the actions that go on around them, and be a well-rounded member of the fire service and represent accordingly.
And I think what you guys are doing is so important.
Well, fantastic. Now, we talk about fire engineering, and we go way back to when it originally started as the Fireman's Journal. Who started fire engineering, and why did they decide to pick this platform?
Well, there were actually, I can tell you exactly who they were, because their names are right here in front of me. It was a man named P.Y. Everett and then Clifford Thompson, and they were the two editors. And so Everett and Thompson were two gentlemen back in the 1800s who were volunteer firefighters and had an interest in firefighting, and were both editors. And they decided that the nation needed a journal. So they used to put this journal out bi-weekly, so every 2 weeks. And at the time, I can tell you exactly how much it cost. It was $2 a year, but that's not what it costs today. And we don't put it out bi-weekly any longer. Obviously, given inflation,
sure,
and everything else. But we still think we're a great buy. And fire engineering, and just for your folks who are watching this and your recruit firefighters, is not about the fire last week. It's about evaluating the fire last week. It's about an in-depth look at what the tactics and techniques are. We have many other magazines. Penwell, we also publish Fire Rescue Magazine, which takes a different approach towards firefighter education. In that magazine, we write shorter, more concise, more direct articles. In fire engineering, we write more comprehensive, longer articles. Both are extremely valuable, and both magazines should be read,
sure, because
they help you focus your interest. In the Navy, they use the term gouge. Get the gouge. In Navy, Army, Air Force guys, you'll hear them use the word, what's the gouge? And what the gouge means is, what's the stuff that the wonks really want to know? What's the stuff, what's the real nuance and depth? And fire engineering is really about the gouge.
Give me the meat.
Yeah, the meat and the real depth. I mean, we really break it down, and our authors really break it down. And it's not to diminish. We don't think we're any better than or any worse than Firehouse Magazine, which is a wonderful publication, or Fire Rescue Magazine, which is a wonderful publication. We think they're both equally valuable, and we think I would certainly hope that you'd read everything you can. Fire Apparatus and Equipment Magazine, another incredible publication, one of my favorites. I think it's incumbent upon us to read. Please read. That there's nothing more important in a man or a woman's life than learning, and read everything you can get your hands on. you should probably put aside a little bit of time each day to read something, and not just fire stuff, something. It'll help keep you happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it helps give you perspective. I know for myself as a young firefighter, coming up through the ranks, and even before I got into the fire service, as I realized it was something that I wanted to do, I was advised, just like you said, I was advised early on by some really good mentors that start reading the trade journals. And I'll tell you, having had a career before the fire service, that the fire service is one place where I think they have really done a great job at providing information through the trade journal concept that, I mean, I can't even tell you, in our firehouse, guys are waiting at the front door for the Fire Engineering magazine and some of the others to show up because they want to know, hey, what's going on? What is going on in the rest of the world? And, now with the advent of the internet and fire engineering online, we do a lot of training in the firehouse. We just bring the videos up and we read the articles as part of our daily stuff. And I think firefighters by and whole want to try and get better every day. And these trade journals like Fire Engineering are just the perfect medicine for that. It gives us an opportunity to pick something up, like you said, every day and be better.
And if you subscribe to the digital edition, and thank you for mentioning that, Bob, in the digital edition, where you may see a photograph in the print edition, we embed videos. So take, for example, Sam Hilty, who's an incredible firefighter out of Wichita, Kansas, and one of the guys I really admire in the American Fire Service today, just a marvelous young man. Anyway, Sam sent us a wonderful article the other day about how to build a hose dummy. In other words, how to take hose and then build a dummy for your drags and your pulls, and so that if you can't afford a high-end dummy, or you don't want to use your high-end dummy in your your live fire training, or you don't want to beat it up, you can make a dummy out of hose sections. So in the print magazine, it showed a picture, but in the digital magazine, it showed him drilling and putting the dummy together, and and it was just so cool. And then subsequently, in every edition, Mike Champo, he was talking about a particular fire they had. Well, he went back to the actual fire building and he showed you the actual, window where they first spotted the fire and the entryway they made. It brought the piece to life. And so, exciting stuff with the whole digital deal. And plus, fire engineering on your tablets is it's just gorgeous. I mean, the pictures just jump off the page, and even the advertisements are amazing. How exciting and how vibrant they are. I mean, I really dig it. But I find myself feeling like a little like Jean-Luc Picard. I sit there. I love my tablet, but then there's just something about having that magazine in my hands too. It's just pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, you talked about that. I think you really hit the nail on the head when you called it the gouge.
Yeah.
I think Fire Engineering, I've been subscriber for a long time, and that digital version, that really gets the gouge. It puts it right in front of you. That's fantastic. Well, I think it would be probably less than appropriate to ask you this question, but it seems like you really like what you do.
Yeah. I'm the luckiest man in the whole world. To paraphrase Lou Gehrig, some folks might say I had a couple of rough breaks, and I did, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm blessed with. I was blessed to be raised with tremendous investment in my faith. And I think that's really critical to being a good firefighter, is that you are strongly grounded in your faith, whatever that may be, however you prescribe to a higher power. I was blessed to marry the most compassionate and the most understanding and the most wonderful person in the world. My sons have been nothing but a source of joy and inspiration. My grandson, who lives in California, by the way.
Brand new baby again. Congratulations, Grandpa.
Brand new baby. Yeah. So seriously, Bob, if I got hit by a truck tomorrow and got taken out, I would want you guys to throw the biggest party, because you just have to say, I never met a fireman I didn't like. I never had a bad day. I've just been blessed. I've never had to go hungry or suffer, um, and I really wouldn't. I wouldn't trade. I wouldn't change a thing, and I wouldn't trade a day of it.
Well, I'll tell you, I've been to a couple Irish funerals in my day. I grew up in Boston, by the way, so I know the whole East Coast thing. So yeah, I've been to a few Irish wakes. Yeah,
Well, up to Dublin, lad.
that's right. Well, tell us a little bit about FDIC. The FDIC is coming up in April of this year. Tell us a little bit about the concept behind it and what makes it so special.
FDIC is sacred ground. FDIC has been around for, this is our 87th, if I'm getting it right, I hope I am, 87th FDIC. And what's important about FDIC is, much like fire engineering is a voice for all the firefighters, FDIC is the same way. FDIC is where any firefighter who's teaching on literally any topic in the fire service that has captured their imagination can have an opportunity to present to his peers and get feedback. It's a week-long celebration of what we do, where we go and we do hands-on training for 2 days. We have 21 hands-on training events. But what's unique about the hands-on training at FDIC is that the teams that come in are the complete teams. So say you call, the traditions training guys, for example. It's one of the few times where all 8 of them or 9 of them are together providing their hands-on training to a group, or the guys that run the collapse class, or the guys that run the live fire. We've partnered with my good friend Jimmy McCormick, who is just probably one of the most brilliant hands-on training instructors in the world, with FDTN, which is already sold out. Then during the hands-on training, we have workshops. We have 80 workshops, and it's names like Brunacini and Lasky and Salka and Graham and Goldfeder, and you name the firefighter, Ritchie, Norwood, McCarthy, you name the person, Schaefer, whoever it is who's captured the imagination of the fire service today is doing a 4-hour workshop. No repeats. Nobody repeats. So then on Wednesday we do a main program where we try to find the strongest voices in the fire service to speak. Last year it was Anthony Castros and Mike Walker, who just blew everyone away. As well as this year it's going to be Eric Roden and George Healy. Eric's from Milwaukee and George is from FDNY. 2 of the most brilliant men in the American fire service, bar none. Guaranteed to give spellbinding keynotes. And then we do 200 classrooms. Again, no repeats. So you might have someone who's in a volunteer fire department in West Idlewood, Iowa, and he's got a great program on tracking volunteer resources at the fireground. Or you may have John Norman, who's speaking about tactics in the next room, and they're both spellbinding. And Dave Dodson comes every year, and so there's a cadre of folks that come almost every year because they're constantly coming up with new insights into their field of interest. But we're also blessed with probably about 60% of what you see at FDIC are folks who have never taught there before, who you may have never heard of before, but if you go back and look at fire engineering, they wrote an article. And I always tell folks, if you want to get picked up for FDIC, write, either online or in the magazine, and that's how you get to FDIC. So we have guys teaching at FDIC and gals who may have only had 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years of experience, and we have people speaking like Chief Brunacini, who's been in the fire service for 50 years, and it's unbelievable, and it goes on for the whole week, and there's all kinds of activities. There's combat challenges, there's the Fool's Bash, there's the Union Party, there's street parties, there's author parties, there's signing parties, there's Stop, Drop, Rock and Roll from the National Fallen Firefighters, there's Comedy Night with the Cancer Support Network, there's you can't imagine. Every night is jammed full of activities. Every day it's training from the minute you wake up till the minute you go to sleep. There's 30,000 of your closest friends. all jammed into every hotel is sold. All the downtown hotels, every hotel is sold out with nothing but firefighters. The streets are filled with nothing but firefighters and our spouses and friends and the folks that support us. And then the folks that come that support us, the manufacturers and the vendors and the dealers, are the most motivated and invigorating people, and their booths are full of information about their products and innovative and incredible ways to use them. People like Globe and Darley and E1 and Pierce and Hamatro and Hearst, and the list goes on and on. If I'm leaving anybody out, I apologize, but and they've all got these incredible new products for you to look at, and they don't just bring the salespeople. They don't care if you don't buy anything. They want to educate you. They bring the engineers and the people who put them together, and you can put your hands on them and you can play with them and simulators. There's 1,100 of these guys and gals. The convention center is full. The Lucas Oil Stadium is full. The street is full. Every nook and cranny, the booth line, the walls. You're making new friends every time you turn around and bumping into people you haven't seen. And it doesn't matter if you're career or volunteer or combination or retired or you're just thinking about becoming a firefighter. It's the place to be. And for 1 week, the world revolves around the fire service.
Well, that's fantastic. I know this year we've been fortunate, and thank you again to have the opportunity to come out and participate, and we'll have an opportunity to share our perspective on branding your fire department by using the recruitment process, and we're very excited about that. We've worked together for many years in this process, and we're excited to be in part of the fire engineering family, and look forward to doing some more written articles for you and some more video stuff for you. We're excited.
Well, and I don't think anybody, and this is not just because we're talking, but I don't think anybody does as a lot of folks do great recruiting, but no one does what you all do in terms of the seminar and the amount of time and energy that you invest in helping people get hired, which is it's God's work. I mean, I think that the fire service is God's work.
Absolutely.
And however, I'm Catholic, so I've got my interpretation. But however you see it, I mean, God's everywhere. If you don't believe me, watch a baby be born.
Oh yeah. You hit that nail right on the head. Well, it's interesting because you mentioned the workshop, and every year Fire Alumni, together with Las Positas College, our host, has been presenting for the last 6 years our firefighter workshop. This year you'll be with us, and we're excited to have you as our keynote speaker on March 2nd. What do you plan to speak about at the upcoming workshop?
Well, I love history, and I love stories. I think we learn from the example of others more than we learn from the words of others, although I think words are important. But I think from people's examples, from lives well lived. And so I'm going to be talking about service and loyalty. And I think those are very important traits for firefighters. And it's not loyalty. Loyalty to virtues and loyalty to principles far outweigh loyalty to individuals. People will come and go. My good friend Chief Bernasini taught me, friends come and go, enemies accumulate. But
and people remember you about as long as it takes to pull your finger out of a glass of water and it to fill back up again.
Well, and maybe not. You'd be surprised.
They'll remember your lessons.
Yeah, but you never know how much impact you have on someone. And again, it's about gratitude, because their level of gratitude for whatever gift you give them at that moment could be life-changing. It could be something as simple as a smile. It could be something as simple as inviting someone over, or holding the door open, or helping them put packages in a car. You don't know what kind of day that person was having. There's a great story about a young man in high school who at one point in time bumps into a young lady who he had seen here and there in their advanced French class, and he just smiled at her and said, "Hi, Cindy, how's it going?" And she said, great, Bobby. And she went home that day and had planned to kill herself and didn't, because somebody said hi to her, and who's somebody who she didn't even think knew she existed. And think about that in terms of what we do.
Yeah, every day. Every day. We are so fortunate. Well,
so
go ahead.
Don't take a second of your time for granted, and smile at every face you pass. And a lot of people won't smile back. I mean, especially today, nowadays, people, I smile at every face you see. And
life's too short to be miserable.
Yeah, and there's a lot of miserable folks out there.
Yeah, there is. So you chose to make a trip. I mean, you have a very busy schedule. We talked just the other day about how much traveling you're going to be doing, and with FDIC coming up in April, and yet on March 2nd you're going to have the opportunity to spend with us. What made you choose to spend some time with us?
Well,
besides we asked you.
I probably shouldn't even say it, because I always tell people I don't do anything in March because of FDIC, and I don't. Because of FDIC, but what you're doing is different, and if we don't care about the future, and if we don't invest in those that are going to come after us, then that's the greatest wrong we could ever commit, because everything we should do should be laying a foundation or helping make the future a better place, not making our place better. That'll happen as a consequence of making the future better. Doing something for the folks that are coming in it's its own reward. My son, who's a Navy pilot, I always love to brag about him. He's down on North Island out there in San Diego. He always says self-preservation is its own reward. So going to your event and spreading the gospel, as it were, of firefighter virtue is an opportunity to self-preserve the virtue that is the fire service. And being a firefighter is a virtue. And it's about sympathy. It's about duty and loyalty. It's about honor and respect. It's about virtue and living a virtuous life, and having the chance to share that it means the world to me, and I'm humbled by the opportunity.
Well, we're grateful as well. So when we wrap it up, I'd just like to take a minute and say, thanks for being with us today. We greatly appreciate your time. Again, we know just exactly how busy you are, and that means the world to us. And for our viewers' information, Chief Halton will be with us at the Firefighter Workshop on March 2nd, live in person. So you'll get to hear more of the same things that he's talking about at Las Positas College. And so you can go to firealumnievents.com to register. We thank you for joining us here today, Chief. And
thank you, guys.
Look forward to seeing all of our viewers on March 2nd. Have a great day and be safe.
Thank you, Bob.